And with us in the studio to discuss the topic, first let me introduce Victor Aluko. Victor Aluko is the Director, Voter Education and Publicity, Inec. It's good to have you once again.
Thank you. Good morning.
And also here in our studio is a regular guest on this program, Ezenwa Nwago. Ezenwa Nwago is the Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms and convener, Say No Campaign Nigeria. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Let me also welcome Professor Sharif Gali Ibrahim, Associate Professor of International Relations with the Department of Political Science, University of Abuja, Director, Institute for Legislative Studies, University of Abuja. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, you're welcome to the program where we're discussing a very important issue this morning. Barely 2 weeks now, we'll be talking about the Anambra governorship election. Anambra actually is one of the states in Nigeria that has a checkered election history. And so it's a tough terrain for not just the umpire, but also politicians as well. Now, Inec has met a number of times, and they deliberated on a wide range of issues, including preparation for the conduct of Anambra November 6 governorship election. The question that will come to mind is how prepared is INEC for this election in terms of logistics, in terms of personnel to execute the project, and of course security. So let's hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can categorically say that we are, if we're going to put figures to it, we are like 98% ready. The other 2% will be for final activities in the next 2 weeks. From our experience, it's just a routine thing, conducting all these elections. We already finished with the voters register. As you know, about 2 weeks ago, we gave the political parties the soft copy of the register as required by law. That's after we finished with the continuous voter registration, cleaning up of the data. So we presented there with the register. So the register is ready for the election. And we're already training our officials because we have to train the electoral officers, assistant electoral officers, supervisory presiding officers. We've done all that. And tomorrow and Saturday, we'll ramp up training of the presiding officers and the assistant presiding officers. As you know, every polling unit will have a presiding officer presiding there with 3 assistant presiding officers. So we will ramp up the training of presiding officers, assistant presiding officers this weekend. And with that, we'll be done with training. And of course, you know, the training is important because we're introducing a new accreditation equipment. And of course, we need to train them about the procedure for manning that particular equipment. That's the biometric voter accreditation system, the equipment for it. So the training is quite okay. It has been very successful. Mm-hmm. Our staff and the ad hoc staff we have sourced. They are learning fast, and we believe that we will not have issues on election day with the type of training we're giving them. It's a sort of specialized training. And apart from training, we've batched all the non-sensitive materials and distributed them. As I said, this thing is like routine. We batched all those non-sensitive materials. We've distributed them. The sensitive materials always come near election day. Those are the ones we keep in the central bank. You know them. The ones we call sensitive. Those are the ones we cannot just release before the time that's before the election day like that, so that they'll be well secured. Apart from that, we've been meeting stakeholders. We've been having our sensitization activities, even though you may not hear so much noise because of the situation, but a lot is going on within the communities in Anambra State. And so we are preparing quite well. And everything to me, it's okay. And I believe we'll have a good election. Thank you.
I'm still going to stay with you briefly. You've talked about replacement of materials, training and retraining of your staff. But there have been calls for postponement of the election. Where are you on that?
We are preparing to conduct the election. We are not preparing to postpone.
There have been calls for you to postpone the election because of the insecurity in the area that is building up. It's 15 days to the election.
The insecurity issue, we are not in charge of security. We have the security agencies. It's their job, it's their duty to provide security. And they have assured us. We had an emergency meeting with the security agencies, the members of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. They assured us, and they are reassuring us, that adequate security will be provided so that people will have the confidence to vote. We don't want an election where people will not come and vote. And security is an important issue when it comes to voter participation. When there's insecurity, you have what we call voter apathy. But the security agencies have assured us, and with what we have seen, there seems to be a lot of progress in terms of security. And with our experiences in Anambra too, we'll be going in and out of Anambra. What we have seen sort of reassures us that we'll be able to hold a good election. As we said, we are preparing to conduct the election, not to postpone the election.
All right, we are still with you. You have raised a number of issues about your preparedness for this election. And my colleague just raised the issue of insecurity in Anambra State. We have the spate of killings and, of course, attacks on political rallies. We had one in Newi, we had one with Abuja's campaign team, and, of course, some deaths in Anambra State. One of the most recent one, actually, is the death of the husband of the former Minister of Information, late Dora Akunyili. Is there any kind of apprehension? You say you go in and out of Anambra State with respect to all these spate of attacks in the build-up to this election. Do you think that such will have a negative impact on the election day?
Any insecurity will have an impact on any activity, whether it's election, whether it's business, social, economic activities. Any form of insecurity in any location will have an effect. But what I'm saying is that with what we have seen and the assurances given to us by security agencies, we believe that the election should be successful. And you made allusion to the high-profile assassination before. After that, we had that emergency meeting with the security agencies at the highest level. And after that, we received the assurance that the security situation will actually be tackled. And I believe they are tackling it.
Okay, thank you. Let me bring in Ezinwa Nwako. You're always in the thick of election matters across the country, and now Anambra election is coming up. It's a few days to it. And what do you think, in your opinion, the scenario would look like on the 6th of November?
Thank you. The scenario would be that the people of Anambra will come out and vote. And why I say that is because the overtly concern for insecurity is actually more outside of Anambra State than in Anambra State. And it has something to do with the nature and complexion of elections generally. I was making a joke with the director when we were sitting out there, and I said, 2011, this 2011 election, we've had 2011 election. Oh, this 2015 election will determine whether Nigeria will. We are over that. This 2019 it will be explosive. There won't be election. We have had it. Preceding Edo State, preceding Ondo, preceding Osun, what was the climate? What was the temperature in the media? So if we gauge election on the basis of this, a peep into these antecedents that I'm talking about, you will see that there are 21 local governments in Anambra State. You can identify, it's easy to circle the places where this crisis is dominant. The other people, the other places where these challenges are, they will have elections. The security will then be able to contain the very area. And all you need to do is to look at Anambra State very more deeply in terms of its history. If you remember, 2003 up to 2001, 2003, you ask yourself, why did the Anambra State government set up Anambra Vigilante Service, which you call the Bakassi Boys? What was the underlying reasons? If you have an answer to that, you also know that the security agencies should be able to identify the hotspots. And I'm sure they've done some risk, and even our sister organizations, Clean Foundation and the rest, have done a risk analysis mapping that can help security agencies to deal with those issues. And then when people talk about over-securitization can also bring confidence to the voter that I am protected, I am secured, I can't do that. So I see my work as inspiring confidence in the voters. If the people of Anambra State want election, nobody can stop them. Not anybody can stop them from having an election. And let me tell you, what is in contention is a over 240 billion allocation budget to that state. And election is about the control of resources. The politicians who have a stake in wanting to control that resources have a responsibility to rein in. Because if they don't, what will be the consequence? The consequence will be that you have a sole, if elections don't hold, you have, what do you call it, state of emergency. And nobody in Anambra State wants that kind of scenario. So both the traditional institution, all the stakeholders in Anambra have a responsibility to ensure that the election holds on November 6th. And that is why I'm confident that, we will have elections. And much more so, Anambra does not have a history. And Chief Kirian did put a handle on that. It has a history of terribly low turnout in terms of, even in in so-called good times. No governor of that state has been elected by 300,000 people.
Why is that?
Which is quite true.
Why is that?
No. So even in the preceding elections, you have 22% turnout. 22% turnout is the highest. So there are deeper issues in terms of how the people themselves see government. Okay, how do they look at government? What is government to them? So the civic engagement that is going on in Anambra is aimed at ensuring that, look, you understand what this thing is about. You're playing five-a-side on election day. You're not being interested. Does not mean that the government will not emerge. If you were in Anambra in 2017, and I was there, I had the opportunity of being on radio. The scenario looked like, there won't be elections, this, that. And in fact, I was on radio because I was saying what I'm saying here in 2017. People were insulting me that, you blah, blah, blah. That election has held. The man who ran election in 2017 is handing over in the next 5 months. Okay? So for me, therefore, is to say, like I've said elsewhere, the people in Anambra have a responsibility to surprise Nigerians by ensuring that they come out and vote and determine who will run their state for the next 4 years. And you ask me why. Why is because there is no attachment. After elections, the people have no connection with governance. They are not interested in the budget. They don't care about who is building road because they build road by themselves most of the time. They provide water by themselves. So they see themselves as government. Okay? But what that does is that those who now have responsibility, who have the custody of public trust on their behalf, are now lords. Nobody challenges them. Nobody engages them. If the citizens start engaging them, they will be more interested in outcomes that come from those elections.
Okay, we're going to come back to you. As a matter of fact, the main reason for discussing the issue of the possibility of not holding election or people not turning up or turning out for the election is because of the current scenario in the southeast of Nigeria, where people are prepared to obey the sit-at-home order by IPOB. As a matter of fact, some people even by themselves try to enforce the sit-at-home, as the case may be. All right, let's bring in Professor Gali Ibrahim on this. What is your reading of Anambra elections? Now, having listened to Ezema Wago and first speaker here from Inec, what do you make of the scenario and what could play out on that election day?
Thank you so much. To build up on where my friends here, have already built up, is for us to understand the political environment in Anambra State. Talking about the security issue, which they have actually digested, you understand that even if it is going to be in Sambisa forest, that the government want to conduct elections, it will be very easy for a government to do that if the political feasibility is there. It's a matter of clearance, paving a way, into that particular place and make sure that elections are freely and duly conducted. And a state like Anambra State, even within that particular geopolitical zone, Anambra is very significant, because it is a kind of a determinant, area for what will actually unfold in terms of how the 2023 elections will be there, which political party is going to emerge, which political party will actually be so supportive even to the federal structure. So having said that, you also look at the issue of what Ezen was said, what actually contribute to low voter turnout in the state. You cannot actually jettison the issue of political apathy. And this is characterized by the nature of businessmen, who believe that my vote doesn't count. So why should I waste my time to go there? After all, if I miss my business today, who will actually complement it for me? So this is one major issue. Then secondly, looking at the recent happenings, in the state, the attacks, the killings, many have already left, their local government or even the flashpoint of such attacks and killings. They have moved to the neighboring state or even far away. And this comes as a result of the basic consideration to life. Why? Because life is very important. I cannot actually risk my life, for what is actually happening. And people will not actually consider elections coming, because if your life cannot be secure and your property, then there is no actually reason to continue to be in such an environment. So that is why some people have already moved. And the issue of expectation, what people expect, as we talk about violence as well as the perpetual killing, then people will try to actually exit, such an environment where without me, nothing will actually stop. So this kind of attitude must have been developed, by some of the electorate. So, but the government, I believe, 33,000 security personnel to be deployed, some helicopters that will actually provide surveillance as well as patrol during the exercise. And I think due to the state and national interest, because we have incumbency factor here, the state want to produce a candidate, a governor from its own political party, which is Abuja, and the federal also want to bring its APC member, to emerge victorious in this particular trend. So I think the security structure will be well, structured, and it will be also strengthened, during the conduct of the elections. Then apart from this is the issue of Inec itself, which we've heard from the director, how well prepared Inec is, as well as the non-sensitive materials initially destroyed. You heard it from the Inec chairman. Also, these have been replaced. But there is one major issue, and I don't really know why the procrastination, in making sure that political parties provide their agent for these particular elections. And that is why INEC issued a caveat, giving them a timeline that failure to submit the list of to upload the names of your party agent into the portal, that will actually result in a kind of punitive measure. So I think the political parties should have done this, even though it is not easy, or it is so cumbersome for you to determine trusted individuals that could actually serve into these particular portfolios. But I think the political parties should have done this, before now. Then another major issue is the political parties, concerned, in the elections. We're seeing the APC candidate, the YPP candidate, the ABGA candidate, as well as the PDP candidate as the major stakeholders, in this particular electioneering process. Also, as I earlier mentioned, that we're going to see a drastic contest because of the incumbent factor, which is the ABGA party, as well as the APC. I think all others should actually serve as opposition, but the strongest opposition to this particular election is the APC itself, which wishes to actually take over the control of the state in terms of the gubernatorial seat. And this apart, we also look at the candidate, apart from the political parties. What have they actually offered to the people? What are their manifestos? Which programs, did they wish to organize, in order to develop Anambra as a state? We have seen the release of a manifesto by Professor Soludo, wishing to actually make 1,000 people millionaires in Anambra State. And that is why Ifeanyi Uba said this is an empty manifesto. So, but when you look at it, when you bring or you make 1,000 people millionaires in a state, what happens to the rest of the people? What will you make them, to be? I'm not really against the promise, whatever. And making 1,000 people millionaires doesn't mean that that will actually bring development to a state.
Well,
why? Because you could
Prof,
actually give, you could actually.
Prof, sorry, we're going to pause you there because you are almost campaigning for the candidates. I think they have the wherewithal to do this campaign themselves. But we've taken your point, really, with respect to what should be the right course to take as a governorship candidate who wishes to govern his state. You have to reel out your manifesto. The manifesto has to be has to have a human face. People have to identify with it before they can vote for you. If we get to the aspect of discussing the electioneering campaign in Anambra State, we could bring all that up. Right. Thank you. Let's bring in again Victor Aluko, Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. INEC is introducing a new technology into this election. And you've just informed us that many have been trained for them to be able to, utilize these facility, for the election. Now, what are the risk factors that you could say may perhaps bring about failure or near failure of the process during the election? And if you envisage such, what should be the antidote, for that? Because expectedly, technology really is good, but sometimes it can also misbehave.
What I want to say is that if we go down memory lane, you remember we were using smart card readers for accreditation. The smart card readers were configured to verify fingerprints of the voter. What we did was just to replace the smart card reader with the new voter accreditation system, which will not only verify your fingerprints, we also verify your face. That is, from one single verification system, we migrated to double, and that's why we call it bimodal. And when you are bringing in an electronic equipment, of course, as you said, you could have problems of failure on the field, you could have problems of malfunctioning, even human errors. But I want to say that we piloted this beavers equipment in the Soko South constituency by-election in Delta State not long ago. That was last month. And the accreditation success was almost 98%. Almost 98% accreditation success. And in that same constituency, the last time we conducted an election, it was a mere 33% success. So we piloted this equipment, and it was extremely successful. That gives us the confidence that we will have the same success rate, 33% to about 98%. See the jump in the rate of success.
But are you considering the fact that we're going to cover a larger space in terms of Anambra being a whole state? You are talking about a constituency election, which is in a constituent.
Yes.
Right, but Anambra is
large.
large.
I agree with you that we will be having a larger territory to cover. But the important thing is, once we piloted, we were able to identify the issues, and it was successful. So we believe it will also be successful. And we have all our engineers on ground. You know, we have so many ICT experts in Inec. In fact, the system was developed by our own in-house engineers. It was the ICT programming, everything was designed by our engineers. So it's an in-house something. So what I'm just trying to say is that we have our people who will be on the ground. We have the equipment. We have spares. And so just the way the whole thing was before, once we move to the field, if you have places where you have problems and you need to replace the equipment, we have spares. And we have places where the engineers need to quickly do some work on the system, we will do. So we are ready for all this. No, as Inec, we had a lot of experience with using smart card readers all over the country for presidential elections, for general elections. So when we developed this one, we were able to test it, and we were all on ground to see how it will work, and it worked perfectly. In fact, we were surprised with the success rate. So
okay, let's take a step back. The primaries that was scheduled and weeks of litigation and conflicting court rulings over the primary results, especially in the APC, which INEC called for intervention by the Nigerian Bar Association. But still, litigation is still ongoing. How do you do that?
Litigations are part of the electoral process. We are not in control of all these issues. It's for the political parties, for the candidates to do all that themselves, and the judiciary. But what we are saying is it will not have an effect on our own election. It's for the parties to determine their candidates, and they have done so. We already released a list of candidates for all the parties. That's already done. So if there is any litigation anywhere, it's between them. It's between in terms of nomination and all those stuff, the whole thing will sort itself out. It will play itself out. We are not in control of that process, and it will not affect our own preparations for the election.
All right, as a while ago, INEC has secured uncommon support for electronic transmission of results. And of course, INEC has also said that they are going to practice that in Anambra State. And they're going to use the device to upload polling unit level results to ease the control.
Result viewing portal.
Exactly. And that is, of course, putting the process in a cyberspace, which could be vulnerable. There are experts in hacking. There are experts who can, interrupt or disrupt the elections in terms of election transmission, result transmission to the central portal. Do you see that as a healthy development?
Well, I think INEC has earned the bragging rights in terms of its push to digitalize the electoral process, minimize human processes in elections. But I've always personally been concerned about the exuberance that I see about the outcomes. And the reason I worry is because as beautiful as the smart card reader was, it was subverted. It was deliberately subverted, both through collusion, community collusion, so how that will be eliminated is also of concern to me. And what do I mean by that? If you get out of Oka, for instance, and you are going to Nibo and the riverine areas and all of those, when community colludes with politically exposed persons and even officials to put aside this process, create emergencies. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Create emergencies and then decide that they need to move ahead. And sometimes we have seen that happen. So I am thinking more in terms of how do we get communities to understand that when we take out a lot of human processes from the election, we up the integrity of our elections. So it's not so much about what Inec is doing, it's more about what the actors, the political actors, the politicians, their political parties and their candidates, what are they studying? Because that has been the challenge in Nigeria. You bring a process, they deliberately work to undermine it, okay? And then the director was talking about Isoko and all that. Isoko is a by-election, all attention was there, people. But in Anambra, you have riverine communities, hugely riverine communities. You have far-flung, backwater communities in which the searchlight. And then most times we also are very arrogant about internet penetration. And my sense is that it's not as much as we say, because if you travel most of those places. So we need to be able to say oversight, much more oversight in terms of ensuring that most of what you say, the RATAC, you are talking, the technicians who you deploy most of the times, the emergencies that are created is that between the time they come, the people, the pressure that the voters themselves, the electorates put on the officials, make them sometimes abandon those everything you have laid out. Are we going to accept those as are there going to be consequences for abandoning the process that is laid out? Those are some of the questions that needs to be answered, going forward. So I agree with you that there are challenges, but that is not sufficient to stop us from enjoying, first and foremost, the whole idea of shifting from a lot of manualization to technology. And I think that for me is key. And that's why I said INEC, the current commission should end that bragging right. There is a lot of push to technologize. There is a lot of push to open up the electoral process in a way. But the challenge for me has been the actors, and I mean the politicians and their candidates who work tirelessly to subvert and undermine these processes.
As in, we're talking about consequences and challenges in the Anambra election and the whole electoral process in Nigeria. Let me join Sharif. Sharif, I'm still going to talk about litigations, judgments, and a fixed date for December 20th for the APC candidates who have gone to court, George Mogalu. Are we looking at a Zamfara situation now if, at the end of the day, on the 20th of December, a different judgment is given?
Yes, of course. Just as the director, Luko, said earlier, that litigation is a continuous process. It is never definitive, in the electoral process. After the conduct of the elections, parties will still go to court, candidates will still go to court. When the winner is also declared, it will continue. We've seen situations in which leaders who have emerged, have spent a significant period, in office. And later on, you see a judgment, comes, against them. And we've seen that, not only within the executive framework, even in the senatorial as well as other legislative framework. So I think we cannot actually zero out all these particular scenarios because it is of a continuous process. And even now, there are cases on the ground. But as he made mention of, the parties have submitted, list of candidates, and that is what INEC is actually going to work with. Then apart from this, I also wanted to touch on what my brother Ezinwa said about the digitization of the electoral process. You see, there are risks in flying an aircraft, but that has not actually stopped people from flying. There are also risks, in driving automobiles. That has not stopped people, driving cars. There are risks attached to businesses, but people overlook such risks in order to actually progress. So there might be risk, in this particular, electronic transmission of our results. But the only victory that has actually happened to democracy in Nigeria is this particular accountable way of transmission of results. I think Anambra is a testing ground. If it becomes successful, I think it will be a good omen for 2023. So therefore, it's something that the people of Nigeria, the electorate, should actually jubilate upon, because it's something that was on the verge of diversion and subversion. But it becomes a victory, for democracy in Nigeria, no matter how enormous the challenge is. But if we have a kind of transparent election, in the country, I think that will be a significant point in the political journey of the country. So I think we must not actually emphasize and continue to look at the challenges, because we have never experimented it. And if we're experimenting it, we should experiment it with good hope. And the issue of the process of transmission also, since INEC is deploying the bimodal way of validation and accreditation of voters, there should be also a bimodal or also a multimodal way, of transmitting these particular elections using different processes and ways of making sure that if one area is actually being compromised, then other areas will actually gather and bring a kind of reliable data, of the outcome of such elections. So I think the issue of litigation, it will continue even after swearing in. So it's not a new thing in the political journeys and practice of Nigeria. And technology should always be embraced, because miniature states in Europe and Asia have actually adopted this particular process of digital as well as electronic transmission of results. So we shouldn't actually try to be less progressive. We shouldn't deter ourselves, from accepting changes and modernity in our political journeys. So if we do this, I think democracy will actually thrive in the country.
All right, Mr. Luko, Ezenwa raised an important, issue concerning the use of this new device. I am not in doubt of the capacity or the capability of your engineers, who developed the device you are going to use in Anambra State for this election. But I'm more concerned about ensuring that if there is any subversion of the process, that you have what it takes to stop that from affecting the final result of this election. When you are transmitting results, is on the airwave. It can be intercepted. It can be interrupted. It happens in the US and other major countries who even have better technology than we do. So what does INEC have to fight this in case it happens? Because just as someone said, look, there are Nigerians who have just sitting down and thinking on how to subvert this process. Because the Anambra election, you may say, is an easygoing election, but Anambra election may not be a do-or-die affair, but it's something close to that. Because the persons concerned are not just young politicians, right? And
Yes,
even when they are young, they are being backed by persons who have been in the business for a very long time. So it's going to be a Herculean task, really, conducting this election from all indications. So what does INEC have, to fight back in case there is any subversion of the process?
Let me say that there's a relationship between the elections we conducted in Edo and Ondo last year, and the election we will conduct in Anambra next month. Edo is not bigger than, Anambra is not bigger than Ondo or Edo in terms of size. In fact, Ondo and Edo are more stretched out. Ondo has riverine areas, very, very serious riverine areas near the sea, more than Anambra. So what I'm trying to say is that as a commission, we have a lot of experience in managing elections in all these terrains. And we should understand there's a difference between transmission of results and what we're talking about. For the transmission of results we are talking about, the law is, we are still expecting the law. You know, the National Assembly has agreed, but it has to be signed into law for it to become law. What we're talking about is the Inec result viewing portal. That is, from the polling unit, we have the capability and capacity to project the result from the polling units, and there are 5,720 polling units, to our result viewing portal, where people can see the result. For us, it's a measure of control. We allow other people to see the result. The political parties, the candidates, can view the result. That is, once we finish election at the polling units and the presiding officer concludes his work, he scans that, he produces an image of it, you know, and projects it to our portal. The reason for this is that, you know, before people talk about all sorts of things happening between the polling units and on the RA collation centers. But once you have the image of the result from all these units, then it becomes very difficult for anybody to engage in any fraud. Now, so it's a matter of control. So there's a difference between transmission of election results as a big issue and the INEC result viewing portal, which we're talking about. So people should understand. And we are saying that the same transmission of election results system we use in Edo and Ondo, we will use it also this time around. Once the BVAS equipment is meant for accreditation. It's meant for accreditation of voters. And also, we have that capacity to also forward that result as we did before. Not only in Edo and Ondo, we conducted 6 senatorial elections where we used the result viewing portal. We conducted about 3 federal constituency seats, and including 1 councillorship in the Federal Capital Territory here. We use the same, I don't want to use the word transmission of results. We were forwarding the results. We are forwarding the results to INEC result viewing portal that allows people to be able to see the result that was arrived at the polling unit. And that's what I'm saying we will do. For transmission of election results, which is a big thing, we're expecting the law. So it's good to understand. There may be a sort of relationship between the use of that technology and the bigger thing we are expecting. But I'm saying that in terms of managing that technology, in terms of fear of hacking, all those ones, we were able to go through it, through that problem in 2 states that are as big as Anambra, if not bigger. And with that experience, we overcome any problem that will arise. Sometimes we do not reveal our strategies for this, because it's technical. We don't like to maybe reveal the ICT strategies, because if you go for football as a coach, you don't reveal all your strategies, you know, before the match. So we have our capacity to deal with the problems that can arise in terms of anybody trying to hack, in terms of anybody trying to do anything. And of course, it's not an easy thing to hack. It's not easy, because anybody that is preparing, we too are preparing. And that's why I say we have a lot of ICT persons that will be on ground from the headquarters, from Anambra State, from neighboring states. We normally deploy en masse. Every local government will have its own retinue of ICT experts. The 21 local governments will have ICT persons on ground. And of course, within the same local government, anywhere there's any problem, you can easily access. They'll be moving around, waiting for any call up to the duty. And that's why they will be there. And of course, they decide all these things, and they will rise up to that challenge. I just want to assure people that people should judge us with what we did before. If we use that system and we're able to use it well, in 2 governorship elections, 6 senatorial elections. A senatorial election is not a small election. 6 senatorial elections, federal constituency, and the small one in the FCT that I'm talking about. And we were able to improve from stage to stage. For Anambra, I think we are really ready. Really ready.
That's great. Ezinwa, what will be the national effect of the Anambra elections?
These are the questions that are always coming. One election, how does it election is one election is like there are no 2 meetings. The meetings are different. They have their character. They have their different complexioning. All that happens is learning. You learn from one to the other. You see, my current training is to problematize, put it out there. And the reason is because beyond being an election observer, I'm passionate about election, its processes. So I go much more, I take much more deeper interest in, see, Inec every day sits down and is thinking about how to improve elections. It got to a point where Inec started the people's results from E60E, paste it, made it compulsory that once you finish at the polling unit, please paste this result on the wall so that people can snap, can take it. So political parties who have more than passing interests in the electoral process can actually have a PU by PU result if they have party agents. But what was the experience? You had officials who were not pasting those results, even when it was something that INEC had agreed that will improve the system. So if you paste that result, if you're a party agent, you just snap. Before this electronic thing that we are talking about, before you get to, you have already sent it to your own situation room. Your situation room can compute, what has come. But officials subverted those things in many places. I am saying I like the passion of the director. I am saying that the politicians, and Oga Kirian, you've heard me here, we over-respect them. We don't call them out. They sit back and subvert these processes through collusion.
With officials?
With officials and politically exposed persons in communities.
Because we need to make it very clear.
So I'm putting this out that yes, and I've had occasions where I've been somewhere and call up people and say, your people here are subverting this thing that you have told the whole world that you are going to do. So I gave credit. I said, I have not seen a commission that is so determined to improve elections like this commission in terms of what it does at every point in time to take out human. I understand what you are talking about. Moving is actually a comparison so that when the electronic comes, the manual, you can put them together. I understand all of that. But I'm saying that my worry for election in Nigeria has not been our attempt at improving election. I am more worried about the attitude of the politicians, their candidates, and community exposed persons in communities who work in tandem with INEC officials to even subvert their own processes. And I'm putting it out because if we pay attention in that area, when we do bimodal, when we do whatever system we put in place, that guarantee will be there. Okay? Sometimes you call these technicians, as nice as the director is talking about it, if they don't come, what will happen? If they don't come when you are expecting them, you create an emergency. And once you create an emergency, then you allow for somebody to take a decision. So once that emergency is created, the voters start piling pressure. And they say, okay, please, let's do it. Once they agree, that's the end of the matter. And if this happens in many places,
yes,
you already have a challenge. So this is not academic. This is not, analyzing elections from. It is coming from field practical experience that is the root, the very root of the challenge that we face. The technicians, the technocrats, the administrators are doing their best, but our politicians and their political parties are not singing from the same hymn book. And we need to get them to do that, and that's my focus. That's what my interest is.
Getting them to do that is not going to be an easy task, because individuals have their stakes when it comes to elections. There are persons who have been paid to effect this profession you are talking about, and that's why I want to ask Professor Ibrahim, what does this portend for Nigerian elections? Because when officials who have been entrusted by Inec to execute whatever plans or strategy that has been put in place to ensure that the election is credible, these are the same people who subvert the process, and of course you now put out what assumingly is going to be the right results, but yet wrong results. And of course, somebody could be declared winner or loser in such process. What does it portend for our elections in this country?
It portends an unfortunate situation which we have known, since the history of, democracy, in the country. And there are laws, rules and regulations, governing the conduct of elections. There are also punitive measures, that should be taken against those who actually breach these particular laws. And one major thing we must actually discern here is that those people who, as I know, call the collaborators, in this particular development, I think the law shouldn't take it lightly with them, because that actually that flexibility that allows those people to continue perpetrating such electoral evil is what actually continues to motivate them, into doing this, mess, in our electoral processes. And the Inec officials, for example, who are indulged into these particular practices should also be seriously, punished, so that to serve as a great lesson, to others who will later be actually deployed into electioneering processes in the country. So if you look at Anambra governorship election come 6th November 2021, you understand that it is going to be a hot election, as we've been envisaging. Why is it so? Because the strategic position of Anambra, as we earlier said, as well as the federal effect, as she made mention of. But the federal effect, we look at the let's say, neutrality of the security personnel that will be there to securitize the vote, the electorate, as well as the Inec officials and the party agent, as well as the ballot papers that will actually be deployed in these particular processes. Then apart from this, the Inec itself, which is an independent structure charged with the responsibility to conduct these particular elections. But the intervening variable, as we say, not only the Inec officials, an offer has to be made. And who makes the offer? He has already said that, the politicians. So, and INEC also has such rules. Anybody who is found guilty of such particular swaying or influencing such malpractice to halt, I think the stakeholders in the retribution process shouldn't actually take it lightly. And I must also commend INEC in their, effort in developing that particular strategy to transmit the result is not an easy task. Looking at Anambra and other places, you cannot imagine the INEC officials, taking the election results, manually and conventionally moving to INEC offices or headquarters in order to submit. The risk, is actually high when this is done in Anambra State. So we must commend INEC for perpetual improvement of electioneering process and conduct in the country. So Anambra election, as I earlier mentioned, is going to be a kind of a good experiment which will actually showcase what 2023 elections will actually present to Nigerians, as well as in terms of progress, as well as, accountability and efficacy of such elections. So I think Inec has done well, and you cannot actually be devoid of interferences as well as erring, in election processes, especially in Africa and elsewhere in the world. But adequate measures, as they are on the ground, they should actually effectivize as well as the outcome of whatever that might actually be seen later after the elections. All the necessary agencies that are actually stakeholders in this particular electioneering process should actually be ready in order to fulfill our righteousness and perfect our democratic journey as we're going to experience in Anambra State.
Indeed, Sharif, you've raised some pertinent questions which I believe the other guests will respond to when we return from this break. Do stay. You're welcome back. And as in one wago, while Associate Professor Sharif was speaking, you were trying to react to some of the issues he has raised here. And what are the areas you want to talk about?
Well, I'm just, I'm a bit concerned because we have suffered reversals in terms of punishment and sanctions. The Commission the Commission and Akwa Ibom State Resident Electoral Commissioner, after the 2019 election, took certain officials to court. Nobody has followed what happened. Those professors that we celebrated, one of them who was convicted has been granted bail. Who is a convict granted bail by the Court of Appeal because his case will not come up on time. Those of you who know law very well, so the attitude, I keep pressing that the challenge is in terms of, because Prof was talking about sanction, retributive institutions doing what they should do. But the collaboration, this collaboration to subvert integrity of the electoral process needs to take a life of its own as a topic to be discussed. In terms of, because it's not enough for a country to be investing. I knew the investment in smart card reader. We came here, we were saying that's the game changer. If I remember, we were all
we had that program.
We were all saying the smart card reader is the game changer. The politicians in the National Assembly opposed it. We all came out in less than 2 cycles of elections. We have put it aside because the politicians undermined it, not because it did not. All those fingerprints cannot be got. Is not true. The electoral officials themselves will say, put it. They will say it's not. Yeah, we can't catch you. We can't catch you. We can't catch. Then they say, okay, leave it. Put it aside. Bring what's that thing they say?
There's a form.
The form, right? This is incident form. And then we by ourselves pushed out what we put billions of naira to do. So when we do this, I am saying you have done this investment. What is the guarantee to protect this your investment because of the other? That's what I'm pointing attention to. Yes, I don't expect the director to say if you did trial and you had a good outcome in trial, the subjective, objective conditions in an election does not play in your trial. It does not come there because everybody is behaving himself to bring an outcome. Okay? But when you put money, the kind of resources we are investing in production, mass producing these things for, we need to also be concerned about how to safeguard subversion and undermining of that process. And the only way NTA has provided that opportunity, that's why I'm using it. Okay? NTA, talk to the politicians, talk to their candidates, talk to them and say, look, this is our investment. will mean nothing if you also don't cooperate. So what is the value? Oga Kirian talked about, stakeholders having interest and all that. At the end of the day, what is that interest? If there's a level playing ground, why would you rig an election that you are going to win? Why do you have an interest in rigging even an election that even in good conditions, you will still win that election? So so let's not take out that competitiveness of elections. Let's agree that if we do the right thing, that at the end of the day, we benefit. Because it's about legitimacy. The question about governance, when you are a governor of a state and the people don't believe in their heart that they elected you,
exactly,
you are going to Senate. The people don't believe that you are representing them. You are in House of Representatives. The people are in their heart knew you bought the election. You subverted the process. Legitimacy question continues to arise. So for me, it's not just about, pushing this envelope, we have done. And I'm not, sometimes people even say, they ask me whether I work for Inec, in terms of how I'm enthusiastic about the work they do. But we have come to that point where we also must look at what has been the challenge. What is the bigger challenge? The bigger challenge is the politicians, their candidates, and their supporters. Not singing, like I said, from the same hymn book. How do we do that? Is to have this kind of programs more and more that is focused on not just celebrating, technology, digitalization, and all of that. We can do all that the more we like. But if these folks don't key in to ensuring that these investments, it will come to the next 2 years. We come and analyze how the bimodal had its own challenges and all of that.
And we would have advanced to another form of technology.
And then it all has to do with procurement too.
Exactly.
Because you keep putting money, investing, but look at what you have put a lot of money. When people say, the world has moved to technology, the whole world is not moving to technology. I've observed elections in many places. There are still many places where the integrity level is still tolerable, where they are using
manual counting.
In Germany, we are dealing with integrity issue. We are dealing with trust issues. That's why we are keep moving and throwing our money to all kinds of
you have really made a critical point here, Mr. Luko, in terms of integrity of an election. Yes, you may organize an election and declare result. But what about the authenticity of this result, the legitimacy of this result that you are declaring? And that is why when it comes to litigation, sometimes INEC results are upturned, in court, at so many instances, in Nigeria. All right, so let's talk about the integrity of your personnel, either the ad hoc personnel that you hire for election or your own staff, because there's no way an election process can be subverted without the assistance of an insider, and who should be an INEC official, be it ad hoc or race staff of INEC. Because from all indications, Ezeanwago has been so passionate about this fact, and it does exist. We're all in Nigeria, and we understand that elections are upturned in courts on different occasions. So how do you handle this issue of integrity of your staff? And how have you made sure that the Anambra State election is not going to be affected by any subversive tendencies coming from your own staff?
There are 4 things involved when it comes to hiring staff for election. First, to hire the right staff in terms of education and ability. The second thing is to train the staff. You train them very well in terms of the processes, the procedures, and the use of the equipment you are bringing in. The third is to monitor their performance. That is, you monitor you inspect what you expect. You monitor them very well on the field. We have a lot of staff that are monitoring. That's our job. There are observers that we are observing them too, who will report what's happening. The fourth thing is to apply disciplinary measures without any fear or favor. When people err, you discipline them. Because in every situation in life, there's the issue of deviance and social control. So you expect that if you are putting about 1,000 people on the field, we are putting almost 26,000. If you are putting 1,000 people on the field, you will expect that they will all be angels. So you prepare that in case anybody subverts the system, there are laid down procedures for disciplining them. If they are Inec staff, EOs, electoral officers, assistant electoral officers, some of our staff will be supervising presiding officers, you deal with them according to the service rules. The youth corps were the youth corps members that we are using as presiding officers. Of course, if you go and subvert the system, you will not get your certificate of the youth corps certificate or the passing out something. You won't get it. The National Youth Service Corps will discipline that corps. You may have to maybe have another year extension of that type of thing. And apart from that, the laws are there. When you're an election official, apart from the internal discipline the organizations will impose on the staff, you also face prosecution, and the person could end up in jail.
How many years? How long?
No, what I'm saying is,
if you're prosecuted,
you're talking about the issue of integrity of the system. I'm saying that when it comes to getting staff for election, there are 4 issues involved. And once we have done that, then we expect that everybody will comply. But I'm saying that in life, you cannot put out about 20,000 persons and think that one person will not misbehave. You only prepare that despite all you have done, if anybody misbehaves and you are able to catch them, and of course we have good ability to catch people. We are talking about the result viewing portal. If you are a presiding officer and you finished and the result shows a party scored 125, and you've already forwarded this to the portal, and you go to the collation, the RA collation center, and we found out that you are writing 521 instead of 125, then you have to answer questions, and the person may end up in deeper trouble. That's what I'm trying to say.
Have they been made aware of the consequences
of course,
of such
during
acts?
training, we have training manuals. During training, we train people about the process, the procedures, use of the machine. Then we train them on other issues in terms of the law. That is, we will not protect anybody from any disciplinary measure. It doesn't even happen in Inec.
Do you have
no Inec staff wants to put himself in trouble.
Do you have any monitoring mechanism that's
Of
also
course.
technological in nature
Of
that
course.
made, discover such erring, because of course it's electronic. One could just say the question of typing it in. Is there any method by which you could detect such a thing using technology?
No, the thing is, when you accredit people, the system itself, tallies. It tallies let's say you have 500 voters in a unit and only 300 turn up. The system tallies it. There are agents with you, there are people with you, there are monitoring people with you. So if you now, out of the 300 people, and you say a party scored 58, and you have already projected, you're already forwarded, and when you come back, you see 85. 58 suddenly becomes 85. It's easy to do. And what I'm saying is, nowadays, people hardly take such risks because it will easily be detected. And nobody wants to be in trouble. Why would somebody, a 20-year-old copper, who just graduated and is now working as presiding officer, we want to go and put them in trouble, and we put them in trouble and possibly go to jail? Nobody will want to do that. But that doesn't mean that out of 1,000, you don't have one.
When someone is making money out of such deals, he doesn't look at the consequences. It's always natural. If you know that after doing that, you're going to make some millions or something.
During training, we'll let them know all this. We'll let them know all this. You see, when people are young, they are idealistic. So let them know the results of
Director, it's not young people. Professors are not young people.
No, I'm talking about not the retinue of presiding officers.
Yes, let me bring in Sheriff, as we are winding down now slowly. What do you think? Fear is a factor, actually. What do you think the outcome of the Anambra election would look like?
Well, the outcome of the Anambra governorship election will be out immediately after the conduct of the elections, but what I envisage is a low voter turnout, which we earlier said. And apart from this, the election will also, have drastic monitoring, from all over the country, all institutions, as well as political observers. But by the end of the day, we hold the hope that the election will be actually free of hitches and glitches, even though we cannot completely eliminate such, looking at the situation. Then apart from this, what will actually give that particular election integrity?
Okay, Mr. Sharif, it's as if we have a problem with your microphone right now. Let's get the opinion of Ezenwa on the outcome of the Anambra elections.
I'm more of we are more of process people. Outcomes are for politicians. If the process has integrity, whatever outcome it throws up is acceptable to us, because at the end of the day, accreditation went well, voting went well, collation of results went well, and then the results are announced. The outcome becomes so you can now gauge how all of these processes went, and so we have a hawk-like attention to process. Those who have deeper interest in the election will be looking at who wins or who doesn't win. The politicians have presented, and their political parties have presented candidates to the people. They are already working, like I said. Forget everything you read in the media. People are campaigning. People are going into the villages, and observers are being trained all over the states. And I've been there more than 4 times, training different observer groups. So preparation for process is more serious for me than what the outcome will be. And that's why you see me shouting myself hoarse about how to hold that process strongly. Until we take out for many politicians, their candidates, and even officials, they see election period as a bazaar. They think this is the time for money making. Okay? They think this is the time to make money, and so once that is what is driving you, everything the director talks about pales into insignificance. It's like the pack of cigarettes, where you see smokers are liable to die young. People still go and buy a cigarette. So we need to engage this conversation in a way that electoral officials see the sanctity and integrity of elections.
Well, I think as time goes on, we have about 2 weeks to the election. We understand that Inec will also be meeting with other stakeholders as we close it to the election, and of course be able to dot the I's and cross the T's with respect to other preparatory measures being put in place by Inec to ensure that Anambra State governorship election will go hitch-free. And of course, Good Morning Nigeria could have more time to discuss this election before the election, because there are maybe other matters arising with respect to preparations for the election. So at this point, we conclude the conversation on this particular topic this morning. I would like to appreciate all our guests for being here this morning. Ezenwa Wagu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, and the convener, Say No Campaign, Nigeria. Thank you indeed for coming. Victor Aluko, Director, Voter Education and Publicity Inec. It's been nice talking to you this morning. We hope to see you again before the elections. And Professor Sharif Gal Ibrahim, Associate Professor of International Relations with the Department of Political Science, University of Abuja. Thank you indeed for being here this morning, Prof.
Thank you for having me.
We hope to see you again on the same platform. All right, let's take some foreign news bits before we conclude today's edition of the program.